This video looks at the use of the quadratic formula. Now, the roots, and remember the roots are where it cuts the x-axis, of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, so that's any quadratic function, are given by the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And this quadratic formula can be used to solve any quadratic equation that you might not be able to factorise. So it's important you must rearrange the equation so that it has equals 0 on the right hand side. If you don't do this, you'll risk losing all the marks in a question like this. So for example, if you were asked to solve 4x squared equals 7x plus 2, step 1 of that calculation would need to be taking that 4x squared equals 7x plus 2 and moving everything to the left hand side. So you need to take away the 7x from both sides, and you need to take away the 2 from both sides, and you'd end up with 4x squared minus 7x minus 2 equals 0 for substituting into your quadratic formula. Now in exam questions, a clue to using this formula rather than factorising is if you're asked to give your answer correct to 2 or even 1 decimal place. Remember, you should always state your unrounded answer before doing any rounding. So the procedure for using the quadratic formula is to check the equation has equals 0 on the right hand side. If not, then rearrange. Write down explicitly what A, B and C are, and then you want to substitute into the formula and solve. Be very careful when dealing with negative signs. So in this example, we want to solve the equation 3x squared plus 2x minus 6 equals 0, giving our answer correct to 2 decimal places. So the first thing we want to do is check that the equation has equals 0 on the right hand side, and it does, so we don't need to do any rearranging. And what we need to do now is we need to compare our 3x squared plus 2x minus 6 equals 0 to our general equation of a quadratic function ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And therefore we get a equals 3, b equals 2, and c equals negative 6. And we want to explicitly state those values. Now we've got x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and that's all over 2a. And we're going to substitute in our values for a, b and c. So x is going to equal negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by negative 6, and that's all over 2 multiplied by 3. So we're going to have two roots. We're going to have x is equal to negative 2 plus root 76 all over 6. That's going to give us a value of 1.119 and so on. And we're going to round that to 2 decimal places, so it's 1.12. And our second root is going to be x is equal to negative 2 minus root 76 all over 6. And that's going to equal negative 1.786 and so on. And to 2 decimal places, it rounds to negative 1.79. So our solutions to this equation using the quadratic formula are x equals 1.12 or negative 1.79. So our next example, we want to solve the equation 2x squared minus 5x minus 1 equals 3, giving our answer correct to 1 decimal place this time. So the clue that we need to use our quadratic formula. Now we need to check that the equation has equals 0, but this time we have an equals 3, so we're going to have to do some rearranging before we can substitute into our quadratic formula. So we've got 2x squared minus 5x minus 1 equals 3. We need to take away 3 from both sides in order to have equals 0 on the right hand side, and that gives us 2x squared minus 5x minus 4 equals 0. Now we can compare this to our general equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So A is going to equal 2, B is going to equal -5, and C is going to equal -4. So we need to write our quadratic formula. X is equal to -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and that's all over 2a. And we need to substitute our values in, being careful of those negative signs. So it's -5 plus or minus -5 all squared minus 4 times 2 times -4. And that's all over 2 multiplied by 2. So again, two roots. We've got x is equal to -5 is +5 plus the square root of 25 take away -32 is 57. And that's all over 4. So that equals 3.137 and so on. And to one decimal place, we're rounding it to 3.1. And then we've got x is equal to 5 take away root 57 all over 4. And that gives us -0.637 and so on. And to one decimal place, that rounds to -0.6. And so the solutions to this equation using our quadratic formula are x is equal to -0.6 or 3.1.